If you're just joining us, last week we talked about what John calls the beast in Revelation 13, okay? Um, but in Revelation 13, John describes two beasts. There's the beast of the sea, which is what we talked about last week, and the beast of the land or the beast of the earth, which is what I want to talk about this week. Now, the beast of the sea, the first beast, is the one that has that mark that we talked about last week, the mark 666. All right? Now, if you weren't here, let me give you just a quick rundown so you kind of know. In Revelation chapter 12, he talks about a dragon. The dragon, remember, this is apocalyptic literature. So the dragon represents kind of the cosmic forces of evil. All right? But then he describes a beast coming from the sea. And this beast, many reading into the text, is what many call like the Antichrist. But what we said last week is there is no the Antichrist is not a thing, biblically speaking, okay? It's an idea, a fictional idea that we concocted, that we read into the biblical narrative, okay? The Antichrist is, you cannot find it in the book of Revelation. It's not there, which seems bizarre to a lot of people because it's like, wait, the Antichrist giving the mark of the beast, that's a thing that's coming, it's in Revelation. No, you can't find it in the book of Revelation. In fact, you can only find Antichrist plural in the epistles of John, all right? So I'm bringing this to your attention for those of you that weren't here. Now, all of that said, what John does describe in Revelation is the beast. But the beast in this writing represents all systems, institutions, and empires that animate evil. So if you want to get real specific, when John talks about the beast in Revelation 13, notice how he portrays it. It's the beast, but the beast has 7 heads. Those 7 heads are the emperors of Rome. So you could specifically say the beast that John describes is the Roman Empire itself, okay? And now, all of that said, what we're unlearning or deconstructing is this truth. There is no Antichrist coming for you. Okay. Now, some of you just breathe that in. We put a little social media post that the Antichrist isn't coming. And my God, first of all, the amount of people that responded and sent me an email that said, no, you're wrong. We need an Antichrist, which really confused me. I've never seen a group of like Christians more needy of needing some evil Antichrist to come. And I'm like, wait, do you hear what you're saying? Like, no, you're wrong. An Antichrist is coming. Don't tell me otherwise, all right? I'm like, wow, we have concocted all these end times ideas that if one part gets pulled out, we don't know what to do. It's like the whole thing comes crumbling down. I got news for you. I don't know how to say it any more clear than this. The Antichrist is not coming. This is first century apocalyptic literature, okay? John is not writing about 2025 or 2030 or the year 3000. John is writing specifically to these 7 churches in Asia Minor in the first century. And he says the beast for him was this empire that animates the forces of the dragon. And that empire has 7 different heads. Now, last week we looked at one of the specific heads that John points out. And all scholarship, most scholarship, predominant scholarship says that the head that John is referring to is the Emperor Nero. So if you do the actual math, most scholars are pretty clear that when you do the numeric value of Nero, it comes to 666. We also said, just for those of you that weren't here, in some of the original manuscripts, it's not 666, it's 616, all right? And the reason 616 was in some of the original manuscripts is because Nero spelled his name, they spelled Nero in 2 different ways, but both equate. So it's like John is just saying, let me tell you how this evil dragon, this cosmic force works. It incarnates itself inside an empire, and this empire is led by these different 7 heads. And I want to give you an example of how this plays out in real time. Let's go back 20, 30 years to the Emperor Nero. And everyone in the first century would have known exactly how wicked and egregious and nefarious Nero was. In fact, most scholarship says Nero and Domitian, which is the emperor ruling during this time, were 2 of the most egotistical and egregious leaders that the Roman Empire has ever seen. And what John is saying is, the beast is not a title or a person, it's a description of all that opposes the way of Christ. And the mark of this beast, the empire, is typically what scholarship says John's way of warning or challenging or comforting or even inspiring these seven churches to not participate in systems that perpetuate injustice and violence. He says, don't take that mark. And last week, if you want to go back, we looked at two different options that scholarship gives us about what this actual mark is. I tend to land toward it being a metaphor in general because in Revelation 4, he talks about the mark of God, and now he talks about the mark of this beast, the Roman Empire. And so in my mind, I tend to hold it as not some literal mark, although it could have very well been in the first century when they went to the Agora, whether or not they lit incense to the emperor or not. But in my mind, I see it as John just again playing. He has 7 trumpets, 7 seals, 7 bowls, 777. The mark 666. This is all Hebrew language of perfection, imperfection, incomplete, complete. He's saying just don't get marked up. Remember your original mark on your forehead. Remember, it is an imprint because you've been made in the image of God. And this is the first beast. Now, all that said, a lot of people don't talk about the second beast, but this is what I want to get into today. So this is Revelation 13, verse 11. Okay, are you ready? You feeling okay? All right, well, this one's going to get, if you're feeling good now, give us 10 minutes. Okay, here we go. Revelation 13, verse 11. Then I saw another beast that rose out of the earth and not the sea, okay? It had 2 horns. Now listen to the language very carefully here. Like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all the authority of the first beast on its behalf, the empire, and it makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose fatal wound had been healed. Pause. You know what he's talking about. The head of that first beast, one of the heads of the 7 heads, was Nero. Remember, he attempted suicide and killed himself, but then there was a story, because he had like a mortal wound to his head, but then there's a story that he actually didn't die, but he actually kind of was still fully alive, and they anticipated that he was coming in all of his glory to rule and reign in the Roman Empire again, okay? So remember that. That sentence is loaded, whose fatal wound had been healed. Verse 13, it performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in the sight of all. And by the signs that it is allowed to perform on behalf of the beast, it deceives the inhabitants of the earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that had been wounded by the sword and yet lived. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast could even speak and cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. Also, it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be given a brand on their right hand or their forehead, so that no one can buy or sell who does not have the brand. That is, the name of the beast, or the number for its name. All right, let's get into this. Beast number 2. Start with a question. What does the narrative tell us about the second beast? And we know who the first beast is, and we know that John is using Nero as an example for how the beast moves around in the world through these emperors, through these corrupt leaders. All right? He's focusing in on Nero. Now, that said, what is the role and function of the second beast? Because we need to get at what John might be saying, not so that we can, again, take this and say, up, it's coming for us. Remember, I'm going to keep repeating this. Revelation is not a future prediction about the end of the world. Remember the genre in which you're reading. However, all of that said, even in the context of the genre, we can lean in and say, what was John saying to the first audience? And then, and here's where I want to go today, what could that mean for us living in 2025 in the American empire? Now, let's get at a little bit of who and what this beast might be. Now, scholarship has various theories about the identity of this beast. And futurists, remember, futurists have all kinds of ideas about who this beast is. Futurists typically talk about it being, they would use the phrase like maybe a false prophet. You've probably heard that kind of phrase before. But there are futurists who believe an actual human individual is coming. He's going to be, quote, the Antichrist, all right? And then the Antichrist is going to have a partner. Do you know what I'm talking about? And that partner is going to be the one who actually deceives everyone into actually worshiping this first beast, okay? So there are a lot of people, a lot of futurists who have speculation. I also have met a lot of progressives in recent day who believe as an antichrist, which isn't in the book of Revelation, but they believe Donald Trump is the actual antichrist and Elon Musk is the second beast, all right? So the first beast is Trump, the second beast is Elon, and the mark is MAGA, all right? And here's the irony behind all of this is that's coming from a group of people who, when Barack Obama was in office, they kicked and screamed against Republicans who did the exact same thing, all right? And I need to repeat this for all of us to hear. Mirroring the nonsense and evil in the other side is never going to get us anywhere, okay? Like we can't mirror the evil we see in order to actually move forward. So if you find yourself on another side and you find yourself and it looks a lot like what has been done to you, maybe it's just a moment just to pause and say, wait, just a minute here. What's happening in me? And I also give a lot of grace for this because I understand reality is really hard right now, isn't it? It's like hard to just be alive right now. It's difficult. And I understand that conspiracy theories sometimes are like, they're like a Netflix show. They just take my mind off of what's actually happening. And sometimes I just want to run with it like, yeah, let's just take that one and go with it. And I think the reason we concoct these conspiracy theories is because we don't know what to do with reality. And reality can be hard to see sometimes. But as I've said 1,000 times here, I think it's necessary for us to be in the moment and see reality for exactly what it is. This is how we heal. This is why history is so important. This is why I am deeply concerned about how this administration is erasing much of our history. And the reason they're erasing it is because they want to pretend as if it didn't happen. But I want to tell you something. This is what I know from Therapy 101. You do not heal what you do not acknowledge. And as long as we keep trying to bury our past, what we've done to the Native Americans, as long as we keep trying to bury everything that we've done in the history of America, we will continue to repeat the cycle. I'm telling you, it's time that we take some shovels and dig up all that has been hidden in the shadows of America. And it's time for us to acknowledge it and see it and repent of it. And this is a necessary step toward our healing as a country. Now, all of that said, there's a lot of speculation about who this second beast or what this second beast is. I would like to try to put it in the first century context. If we know that when John talks about the first beast, he's not talking about an individual, he's talking about all institutions and systems, and specifically the empire in Rome. And one of those heads was Nero, and there are all kinds of other heads because those heads come and go, because the cosmic forces of evil don't care who's in charge. They just want to make sure violence is still moving forward. And so the question is, if that is the way John saw the first beast in the first century, then what would he have said about the second beast? How would these first readers have understood what this second beast is? Now, he gives us some hints really, really clearly up front. He says this beast had horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon. Now, this is a reference back to Revelation chapter 5. If you remember, we went through Revelation chapter 5, and John, remember this? Describe Jesus coming as a what? Slain lamb. So John says this beast had horns like a lamb, but spoke like a dragon. You could say it like this. This beast had the appearance of a lamb, but had the essence of the dragon. This beast had the agenda of a dragon, but the accoutrements of religion. You could say this beast dressed itself in priestly robes, but inside was being motivated by the cosmic forces of evil. Now stop. Already you're like, come on. I know, yes, I know this. We do know this. It's been 2,000 plus years later, and already, before we even get into this, you know this. Now, Jesus said something when he walked on earth. You remember what he said? He said something about wolves in sheep's clothing. Have you heard that phrase? Yeah, some of you are like, oh yeah, I tweeted that one yesterday. All right, yeah, I know. All right. Wolves in sheep's clothing. Now, this phrase, first of all, let me just say, I have been called a wolf in sheep's clothing for, I don't know, the last 9 years at Vinings Lake, all right? So I own it. Yes, it's like wonderful, whatever your understanding is. What I love about us is we throw these labels on anyone that we disagree with, right? We're like, that's a wolf in sheep's clothing, right? I'm like, is it? John wants you to see. Now remember, apocalypse is an unveiling. So he's doing, in my opinion, what John is doing this week and next week, we're going to stay in this text for the next 2 weeks, is the most dangerous thing in the book of Revelation. Because he's been exposing the empire, and he's been exposing Domitian and all the emperors, and you might think, well, that's dangerous too, and certainly it is. Remember, he's exiled on an island for already doing these things. You know that. He's riding from Patmos, which is an island. So he's already been pushed to the edges. So the emperor and the empire is like, you're going to keep talking like that, you're going to get killed, but we'll just push you to the edges. So that is dangerous. But in my opinion, what he's doing right now, over the course of the next few weeks, what you're going to see is John goes after several things. One, the economics of his day. Man, does he go face to face with the economic injustice of the Roman Empire. And then he also goes after the religion that animates the empire. And in my opinion, after reading this, what you begin to see is John is describing some beast that has the appearance of the lamb, but yet its actions are like a dragon. He goes on to say this in verse 13 and 14. It performs great signs, making, okay, pause, anyone who knows anything about the Hebrew Scriptures, what I'm about to say, you're going to know this. Making fire come down from heaven to earth. Okay, Sunday school class. What does that remind you of? Okay, in the Hebrew Scriptures, a prophet made fire come down from heaven to earth. Do you remember him? Elijah. You remember him? Okay? Remember, John is a Jew. He's playing on these Hebrew ideas, all right? Making fire come down from heaven to earth. And by the signs, it deceives the inhabitants of the earth. This first audience would have been very familiar with what John is writing here. This is a reference to the prophet Elijah in 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 20 through 39. Elijah calls down fire. Elijah was a prophet. Prophets are known to be what? Mouthpieces for the divine. They're truth tellers. And here's a great statement for you to remember. Prophets are truth tellers. They are not fortune tellers. Prophets are here to speak truth to power. They're not here to predict the future. They cannot do that. Now, what they can do is speak truth to power and warn you that if you keep going in the path you're going, there will be inevitable consequences to your actions. But what's happened is over time, people are going, that's future telling. They're predicting the future. No, they can't. They don't know the future. What they do know is history. And what they know is in history, they've seen this play out time and time again, and they've seen the consequences of it. And so what they know is if you continue down this path, it will lead to destruction. What could John be telling us here? Looks like a lamb, but acts like a dragon. But it performs great signs, makes fire come down from heaven. It almost looks like a prophet. It almost appears as a mouthpiece for God, but it's actually a mouthpiece for the dragon. The beast performs as a true prophet, kind of looks like it, but it's actually a false prophet. The beast that I believe John is writing about is not a political system here. He's already dealt with that. This beast is a religious system. John is describing the religious system of his day that encourages people to accommodate themselves within the Roman Empire and the imperial cult. John is simply saying, in the first century, as if it wasn't hard enough that we lived under an oppressive empire called Rome, with its authoritarian dictating leaders like Nero, that has their boot on our necks, who's pushed me to an island because I spoke out against its injustice. John is saying, as if that isn't enough, then I'm looking out in the first century, and what I'm seeing is a religious system that has gotten in bed with the first beast, in bed with the empire, and it's animating and justifying and baptizing all the bigotry of the empire. Now, I want to pause here, and I want to read a line from Jeremy Duncan in his book, Upside Down Apocalypse. He says, quote, John reminds us that every empire has priests who serve to sanctify its violence. And that religion itself can be co-opted into just another tool for the dragon. It looks peaceful. It might even accomplish nice things. But any religion that provides cover for the violence we don't want to see is anti-Christ. Yeah. John is saying there is a religious system that I'm seeing in the first century. And it has been seduced by the empire. It's gotten in bed with the empire. And it is baptizing, camouflaging, placing a veneer, covering all the egregious atrocities that the empire has been committing. It's like taking their bigotry but going, no, it's really not bigotry because we're going to baptize it and then we're going to justify it in the name of our religion. Yeah, you see how troubling this is? You see why this could get John in some trouble? And what is John doing? What is Apocalypse? An unveiling. Guys, you know what he's doing here? He's messing up the magic show. He's like walking into the middle of a David Copperfield show going, hold on. I want to tell y'all how this happened. Let me tell y'all how. I know y'all are like, oh, how did that rabbit get in the hat? I'm going to show you. Actually, can you, let's just pull the curtain. The rabbit's been down here the whole time. But then it came up. I know it's an illusion. I know. But it's really important that you see things aren't as they appear. Yeah. Do you feel that? Like when I'm reading this, I'm going, oh my God, tell me more. And then there's also this like impulse within me going, I know John's writing to the first century, but kind of relevant. Like kind of relevant. I mean, who knew when John wrote this? This is why it is tempting. Trust me, I get it. It is tempting to read our culture into a text and to start saying this beast is that, this beast is that. I get it. It's tempting. I don't think it's profitable for any of us. And I actually think it's a clever way to miss doing our own internal work in the midst of this reading, all right? But that said, I get it. But John's like exposing the magic show, and he's like, I don't want, remember he's writing to 7 churches, I don't want you to be deceived. I know there are some of you in these 7 churches who don't think it's a big deal. I get it. I know. Lighting a little incense to the emperor is not a problem. A salute to Nero, a salute to Domitian, not a problem. But what I want you to know is that it is a problem because that's how the slide happens. And it's like you start here, but then all these atrocities get justified. Have you ever experienced this? It's like you see something that you know internally in your conscience, you're like, that's not right. Have you ever had that impulse? Have you ever seen somebody do something intuitive, you're like, that's not right. Before you had any context, before you had any influence being pulled on any media, you see something, and the first thing you feel is something's not right there. It's not right. But what happens is it's very subtle. That not right gets kind of laughed at. He was just kidding. He was just kidding. Okay? Have you ever been to a family gathering before? And the racist uncle shows up and he does a side. Do you know what I'm talking about? I've had this in my life. I was going to give you one example. I've been to a family gathering before where I've heard like the family members talk about a particular part of Atlanta, and they'll say things like, "Oh, that's the hood." Have you heard this? There's in me. There's like an impulse going, "Oh, he's not talking about neighborhood." Oh. And then you ever make it real awkward? Hey, sir, can you stop talking like that? Shall we have chicken? He's like, oh, yo, dude, no, yeah, no, I was just messing around. It's just a joke. Like that's kind of what I do. Okay. Well, if what you could do could end today around me, that'd be great. Let's move it to the political scene, right? Oh God, what example do we use? So it's just a joke. That's the thing about it is we justify these actions, but deep down we know we're sliding right now. We are literally sliding into destruction and we're laughing our way there. Yeah, I know. I know. Now, I'm going to ask this question, and then we'll just get into this, and then we're done. I told you, pretty short and sweet and to the point today, okay? We're going to pick back up next week because we really need to talk about, because my thing is not why does empire get in bed with religion? I get that. My question is why does religion get in bed with empire? So today's more why empire gets in with religion, but next week I'm going to talk about why religion gets in with empire. Now, here's the question. Because you read this and you're like, second beast, yep, dressed like a lamb, but has the actions of a dragon. Oh my God, the religion of John's day. Yes, Cody, you see it today. The religion that animates all these atrocities. They baptize it, justify it. Oh yeah, well, it's just this, it's that, it's this. Or even go so far as to be like, it's necessary. This is why we have the phrase just war. There is no such thing as a just war. All right? That is baptizing violence in language to make ourselves sleep better at night. Do you understand that, right? Let's just pull the curtain back, right? Yes. Okay. Here's the question. Are there any ways religion is being intertwined with empire in our world in 2025? Basic question. You all laughed because you're like, well, it seems pretty obvious. I want to try to examine one today for just a brief moment, and then we'll get back to it next week. I'm going to give you another one from our current president, because our president had an iconic moment that I want to talk about that I believe identifies how empire and religion are coming together. We're going to explore it together next week and like really, really get into it. But I want to get into this one because I know you know about it firsthand, like you've had experience with it, but I want you to listen. And again, try to come at it from an educational perspective for a minute, all right? Like I want you to observe, but listen to what you're hearing. Listen to what you're seeing, because I want you to see how easy they slide together. And everybody's just like, well, what's for lunch? That's just life. And I'm telling you, no, John is like, no, there'll be no more lunch until we get this sorted out. That's what John basically is saying, all right? Okay. Here's the two words that you are very familiar with that represent this second beast. Christian nationalism. I mean, I mean, just in the two words, you hear it, right? Now, here's the irony: Christian nationalism. There are some who would hear that going, yeah, what's the problem? These are also people who grew up in a church very similar I did, who you pledge allegiance to the American flag and the Christian flag at the same time, as if there's no discrepancy between the two. Yeah, they run parallel with each other. Not exactly. Okay? Christian nationalism. Now, I want to talk about this phrase for just a second. To get at it, I thought I'd give you a visualization. Most of you are familiar with this, but there was an incident that happened. I like to call it an insurrection. Okay? It happened on January the 6th. But here's what was interesting about what happened on January 6th. And there's a lot of things we could talk about January 6th. So much. And many of you, man, there's not enough alcohol on this planet to spend time together to walk through some of the details of what happened on January 6th, all right? Because I have a hard time seeing it, looking at it, processing it. But there was something that captured my attention because my field is spirituality. My field is religion. And so anytime I see something like this, what I focus on most is when I see signs in the middle of an insurrection that says Jesus saves. Okay? Because there's a part of all of us that would be like, it's just an outlier. There's a radical in every group. Again, that's a nice way for us to slide right into destruction. Okay? All right? Now, all that said, you all know what took place. I want to tell you the consequences of what happened on January 6th, because even when I started reading it, I wasn't sure all of that took place. But I just want to show you what happened when a few of these individuals got inside the Capitol. And you probably have seen this video. And let me give a little bit of a trigger warning. No judgment here if you need to get up and walk out. I told my wife this week I'm on a fast from media right now. I don't want to hear it, see it, talk about it. So if you come at me with some idea, it's all love. But I'm going to be like, not today. Not today. I need a break from the madness. And so I told Katie, I was like, can you honor that? Like boundaries. And I'm asking you too. Like I know many of you text me, like just give me a couple weeks to catch my breath. And I encourage you to do the same. You know what I'm talking about? Because I'm running a marathon. You know what I mean? And I know you are too. So let's be good on ourselves and let's take care of ourselves. And if you feel your anxiety rising like mine has been, man, I have had to lean in going, okay, I just wrote a book about anxiety, so I should probably practice a little bit of what I'm writing about, all right? That said, if you need to walk out of the room, I totally get it. But this is about a minute long, and it's when the insurrectionists get inside the White House. That's hard for me to listen to. I'll be honest with you. I'm so angry when I watch that video. That's the emotion. And not, I'm angry at many things, but one of them is, dude, you stepped into my field taking the name of Jesus and baptizing your racism in the name of a brown-skinned Savior. Yeah. I know. By the way, I didn't feel like the talk was going to be this heavy because in 10 minutes, I'm going to be like, now let's go clean, okay? God, I know. Sometimes you can't plan the emotion of a day. It just happens. But, yeah, I guess I would just say I'm where you are. That should have been the end of this administration. Let me rewind it. The Access Hollywood tape should have been the end. That should have been the end. I just want to be very clear. That should have been the end. And if that wasn't enough, that should have been the end. And yet it's like, well, it wasn't exact. Well, hold on. Well, look at the other side. We're not talking about the other side because the other side's not using the name of Jesus like the other side is. Most Democrats I know are like, not really down with Christianity. And I'm like, thank you. Yes. More atheists, please. Can we not bring God into this? That would be amazing. Yes. Yes. Now, all of that said, just a reminder. These individuals came in with weapons, bear spray, guns, spears, and a hangman's noose, and they yelled out, "Hang Mike Pence." I also would just like to pause here and give a shout out because I'm a lifelong Republican. And I dream of the day the Republican Party goes back to the way it used to be, where it actually cared about values at some level, okay? because what you're seeing right now is not that. And I need to stop here and just give a little shout out and love. Whatever you feel about the man, I got to give Mike Pence a little bit of credit because 2 times now he has stepped up to the man in power and said, "You're wrong. You're wrong." And he's kind of claimed that Republican Party that I'm like, oh, wow. Wow. By the way, have you ever had a moment where someone on the right, you agree with them? And does it feel kind of weird? You're like, oh God, something's not right. Oh God. Recently, Mike Pence came out and he tweeted at Trump. And he tweeted at him and he essentially said, "You're wrong, Mr." This is what he actually said. "You're wrong, Mr. President. Ukraine did not invade Russia." And I was like, God, I mean, Pence, he better be careful. They already tried to hang the man. And I'm like, he might be one of the few Republicans who is not afraid to step up to the authoritarian leader. And I'm kind of like, dude, you need a running mate? Like a progressive pastor from Mableton? But here's the thing. What's interesting is you have that moment and you're like, when he tweeted that, I was like, Katie, look at this. And then everybody around me was like, oh my God, wait, ooh, that feels weird. I agree with Mike Pence. And I'm like, no, you're looking at it all the wrong way. Here's the thing. It's not that you agree with Mike Pence. It's that Mike Pence agrees with you. 7 people died as a result of that insurrection. 174 police officers, 4 police officers, most of you probably know this, killed themselves within 7 months of that incident. Suicide, families lost without their dads. One died of, quote, natural causes 24 hours after being assaulted. And then most, if not all, with the exception of like 1 or 2, were released after these actions when the new administration came in. Here's what I would like to say to you. Christian nationalism, let's give a working definition here. This is Russell Moore. If you don't know Russell Moore, another fan that I greatly respect, he grew up like me, came out of the Southern Baptist Convention, but he stayed in the Southern Baptist Convention. And so he is an ethics genius when it comes to the Southern Baptist Convention. Russell Moore said this as a working definition of Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism is the use of Christian words, symbols, or rituals as a means to end of shoring up an ethnic or national identity. Let me give you 2 more working definitions. Our brother Shane Claiborne, y'all know Shane, all right? You'll like his definition better, all right? Here's what Shane said. Christian nationalism uses the language of our faith and the symbols of our faith, but betrays the heart of our faith. One gentleman by the name of Tyler wrote it this way. Christian nationalism uses Jesus as a mascot to disguise racism, xenophobia, and hatred. A representative not too far from here in Rome, Georgia, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene said, and I quote, "The Republican Party should all become a Christian nationalist party," unquote. She said, quote, "I am a proud Christian nationalist," unquote. I bring this to your attention because, friends, this view is not fringe. Her beliefs are a common ideology. It's an ideology from many evangelicals that believe America was founded on biblical principles. And I would add, what biblical principles was that? The genocide in Joshua? And so what they claim is a return and an institutionalized Christianity as our national identity. They want to create policies in light of their version of Christianity. So it goes like this. Christian nationalists want to Christianize America. They want to reclaim America for God. But I got news for you. In their efforts to try to Christianize America, they have Americanized Christianity. And I want to remind all of us, America is not a Christian nation. I don't know how I can say that any more clear. America is not a Christian nation. We are a nation with Christians, but we are also a nation with Jews and Muslims and agnostics and atheists. And the reason Christian and nationalism want to come together is because on the empire side, and we'll get to religion, but on the empire side, the reason empire and religion enjoy working together is because the empire needs religion to baptize its violence and injustice. Make no mistake about it, friends. The empire does not care about your Christianity. The empire cares about its power and its politics and its authority. And the empire will use whatever the empire needs to use to make sure it stays in its position of power. And I would also just like to call it for exactly what it is. Christian nationalism is not Christian. Christian nationalism is another phrase for white supremacy. Because the Christianity that they speak of, that they want to bring America back to, is not the one that Jesus initiated in the first century when everyone was included. The Christianity that they want to bring back is one where the white men ruled and reigned, where the people of color were beat into subjection, where they were taken and made slaves and brought across the ocean and forced in the name of the Bible and their God to follow the orders of the white man. And as they come in, they destroy every native human who ever walked this planet in the name of conquering for a new heaven and a new earth. All I'm trying to show you, friends, is pulling the curtain back, hoping you see this is not new. This has been going on for years. But it's time. I don't know how you feel about it. It's sure time for people who don't subscribe to that version of toxic Christianity to pull the veil back and start showing the world explicitly who and what that is actually about. Because it doesn't represent all of us. And some days I get up and I'm like, have your Christianity, I'll choose being a child of God. It's larger, wider, bigger. I've got no use for tribalism anymore. But then some days I get up and I say, pause just a second. I am a follower of Jesus, so I am a Christian. And I got news for you. I'm not budging my ground. You can't have Christianity. I and us will take this thing in the direction that Jesus intended for this movement to go. I mean, who knew in 2025 that one of the greatest enemies to this early start of the Jesus movement would be Christianity itself? Who knew? Who knew? And I think one of the ways we can move forward is by using our platforms to expose. And here's what I mean. I mean, we've got to go further than what John's doing. John is using apocalyptic literature. In my opinion, he's using it so that he avoids death himself. That's my theory. I think he knows if he outright, did you know, John never mentions Domitian's name in the book of Revelation. Never. There's a part of me that loves that. I also think possibly the reason he never mentions Domitian's name is because when he gets held accountable and he's standing in front of the imperial court and they're like, did you mean all this about Domitian? He can be like, dude, I never mentioned his name. Not one time did I say Domitian. Now, I've slaughtered that. I've mentioned Trump's name more time than I could ever care to admit. What I will tell you, in the first term, I not one time ever mentioned his name, partly because I didn't want him to get what he loves, attention. But then I realized, you know what? This is a different time and a different place. And so, yes, I know most of you are like, dude, man, you've gotten explicit about all this. Yeah, I'm no longer using cryptic code. Because what I've learned is it just isn't working for us. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to expose it, and yeah, we're naming names. Yeah, that's what we're doing. We're shining a spotlight going, hey, I just want you to see something. This is how it actually operates. So anytime you see empire and religion getting together, all the lights on the dashboard are blinking. Something's not right here. Okay. All of that said, let's just close right here. Okay. You guys have been great. Are we okay? You get it. I think, yeah, you're tracking. Okay. Let me just close with this, okay? And we're going to get here too. Next week, we'll pick back up. I want to talk about the religion side. So we know empire's just using religion. They don't care about religion. What they care about is their power, okay? They're just using religion. Tragically, I don't know if a lot of religion even knows they're being used. I don't. And I don't mean this as an insult, but by and large, because a lot of religious people aren't very educated. And I mean that to say they just like it's almost like it's almost like they're perfect prey for people of power to come in. Because for many, it's like they don't know, and what you don't know, you don't know. And so what you do is you lean to the first authority or power for security and comfort, and so you just go to it. But then inevitably what happens on the back end is you get burned, and you're going, wait, I just trusted because you said this was the golden age, and we were supposed to go this direction, and this is like I just trusted. Yeah. Yeah, and this is why I think it's important. We stress this all the time. Religious education is important. This is why you come and I'm here, because we can together teach each other going, are you seeing this? Because I'm seeing this. Did anywhere in the ancient biblical narrative talk about this? Turns out it did. It's called the book of Revelation. Yes. We have to learn, grow together, expand our own consciousness. Now, I'll also say this. I actually still think there are some religious people who very much so know exactly what they're doing. And they also are after many of the same things that empire are after. And we're going to talk about that religious side and perhaps why they come together willingly with someone that they know, an empire that they know doesn't uphold the teachings of Jesus. But let's close here. John in Revelation chapter 17. John calls the empire and here's the word, whore. Now I want to pause here and say, forgive the sexist language. A lot of the prophets use that language to try to describe how empire and religion comes together, okay? Almost like a seduction of sorts. He sees the coming together of empire and religion as engaging in sexual immorality. So it's really important in the book of Revelation, anytime you see the phrase sexual immorality, some of us, if you're reading it like firsthand, you'd be like, yeah, people shouldn't be sexual immorality. That shouldn't happen. No, just know it's like, again, it's metaphorical language that John is writing about the two of them coming together. He calls it immorality. But in Revelation chapter 18, verse 4, you're going to hear this over the next few weeks from me, because I think this is the thesis of John's book. He says, Revelation 18, verse 4, come out of her, my people, so that you do not take part in her violence. Come out of her, my people, so that you do not take part in her violence. So here's the invitation for us, and then we're out. Ask this week. Ask the divine. Ask the universe. Whoever you pray to, ask. Open my eyes. Open my eyes. Help me see what I can't see right now. And then give me the ability to see it, and give me the ability to call it and name it for exactly what it is. And then a step further, give me the energy to help expose it for exactly what it is. And then, God, help me to take a searching moral inventory of my own heart and show me the ways in which I too have gotten in bed with empire. And then give us all the strength, energy, and grace to do exactly what John said, to get out of the bed with empire and come out from among her. Yeah. So this is what I'm calling the religious leaders of our country to. Come out of her, my people. Do not take part in her violence. Come out of her. All right, friends, I am so grateful that you give me the privilege to teach like this. It does not go unnoticed. I leave here every Sunday smiling, going, I can't believe that just happened. Um, I can't. And I want to say to you, I know that you know this, and this isn't pity, but um, there are a lot of people who hate what we do here. A lot. And it's been cranked up since January. Since the start of this series, it's been cranked up. We've gotten a lot of vitriol through email. And I just want you to know it does not go unnoticed that what keeps the engine going here is you people keep showing up. And here's what you're saying. I'm tired, Cody. I'm exhausted. I don't even really want to be here this morning, but I'm here this morning, and here's why. Because there's something in me that knows that, God, we've got to move this thing forward, and we do it better together. So I just want to say thank you for, God, keeping this engine moving forward. When everybody said it couldn't happen, you're still making it